kind of external kind of silos can be problematic sometimes because they can be pit against one another, and we see that a lot. We see environment and economy often coming up against each other as concepts and ideas because they're seen as separate. Whereas at one time they were whole. And so in this slide, I just wanted to convey that was our history. That's what we did. Like I should have probably called my mom this morning and said, do we even have a word for economy in the Anishinabe language? Because we were here for thousands of years and flourished, not just survived, but flourished in our lands and territories, waters, with our relatives, human and non-human, and other nations. And we had our own laws, governance systems, economic systems in place to enable us to be able to do that. So that's really most of the history here. So the idea of Indigenous economies already exists. It's already there in all its diversity, as Ariel pointed out. And part of our job, or maybe my job as a researcher and scholar, is to try to bring that forward and understood more. Because I kind of think that, well, actually I don't kind of think, I know, there's a real lack of imagination in broader society about what that might actually look like. And I say, well, we already did it. It's actually been here for thousands of years, and in many cases still exists. We don't have to kind of wonder about it or try to figure it out. It already was. And it was a very encompassing concept and way of life, and accounted for our ancestors and future generations and the spirit worlds. I think we're all pretty much aware that land is important. Anybody who's in this conference is going to know that. And you know, Yellowhead Institute came out with the land back, and now cash back. We know that land's important, but it's more than land. And what I've been told by so many elders and traditional knowledge holders, practitioners, keepers that I've worked with over decades, like they'll go, yes, but it always starts with spirit. Like that's the center. And land is an expression of that, or spirit is in the land itself. And so we have a foundation from which to talk about these things. I do believe that the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People and the Human Rights Framework is really important, like absolutely. But they don't encompass everything that's important to Indigenous people. They don't really account for our relatives in the non-human world in the same way that we do, in the way that we think. Pretty well, almost anything to do with the way we think and interact with the world always goes beyond the human dimension. We're always thinking about our outer relatives. We're always thinking about our ancestors and future generations. So some questions that we might ask in this: are we honoring our relationships with our ancestors? Like, these are economic questions, I guess you could say, with our relatives and teachers, with each other. Are we doing justice to them? And what are our own codes of conduct that help us maintain these reciprocal and harmonious relations? How do we ensure our relatives live well, flourish? So living well isn't just for us, it's for all relations, or natural world, or environment, however we want to conceptualize this. And what knowledge, laws, and conduct is required to do this. And we have, and this is in our stories, because you know, we get a lot of our instruction from them. So, how do we imagine a different future? So this is just a picture from a elders, or images from an elders youth gathering, actually organized by the youth who wanted to know more about language and traditional knowledge and for trying to understand climate change. And what I really like about it is they talk about love. I'll have to say that only in Indigenous context has that ever come up. Like, it's just not a relevant concept in climate change discussions, climate solution discussions, or Indigenous economics discussions, but it is an Indigenous context. Do we love the earth? Do we love future generations? So it's important in terms of imagining what we would like and how we want to be in the world. Again, it's tied to our language and identity. So language is really important. I find that for my work, I don't really learn the coolest things from reading stuff. I mean, I do, I get inspiration from that, but even their work, like Robin and others, it comes from actually interacting with people in the communities who think in the language, who are practicing traditions. That's where I usually find the most inspiration. I just go, whoa, like that, like that's usually where I learn the most inspiration. And so that's why language and identity and those relationships are really important, because that's where a lot of our inspiration is going to come from.